Secretary, the Russians are building up in Syria. A lot of troops on the ground, a lot of stuff in the air, stuff in the sea. Your Russian opposite number and you have spoken 3 times, I think, in September, and I think you're about to talk again. Is there a plan? Is there a new phase?
Well, that remains to be seen whether or not there's a possibility, depending on what the Russian intention is here. We share the same deep concern about ISIL, Daesh. ISIL needs to be destroyed, stopped completely. It is obviously the most significant player in the massive migrant crisis that's sweeping through Europe. And of course, Assad is a key part of that because he is the magnet attracting so many people to fight him in the region. So really the conversations with Russia right now are to deconflict. I mean, the focus is to make certain that our efforts, which are going to continue, we're not abating one bit, we will increase, in fact, some of the efforts we're making against ISIL. And we need to make certain that those do not conflict with Russia's efforts against ISIL. So obviously it's important to have that conversation.
But there is a worry that people have. I mean, it is rare to find the Russians and the Americans in the same theatre of war.
Well,
you know, they have people on the ground, you don't, but you both have something in the air. And the danger that there might be some sort of...
Well, that's precisely why it is so important to have this conversation of deconfliction. It has taken place. It will continue. And it is possible now that there may yet be a meeting or some other follow-up on it. We will stay very closely in communication because that's very important. We share the same goal. We share the goal of ridding the region of ISIL. They allege...
Well, that's progress, isn't it?
Well, they allege that they also share the goal of a political transition that leads to a stable, whole, united, secular Syria. The question always remains, what is Assad's place and role within that? And that's what we need to have more conversation on.
It looks a little bit as if what might happen is that the Russians will really focus on ISIL.
Well, terrific.
In which case, what happens to Assad? Do you say, look, we will deal with Assad later, let us fix ISIL?
Well, here's the contradiction. And it's one that we've been very clear to the Russians and others about for a long period of time. The fighters that are there, the foreign fighters that are there, are fighting Assad. They are there because Assad has gassed his people, tortured his people, barrel-bombed his people, that he has...
But they're also there because they want a caliphate.
Well, some of them. That goes to the difference between ISIL and some radical elements versus a moderate, legitimate opposition. There are different shades of opposition. Obviously, we are deeply engaged in the fight against ISIL. This notion of some, unilateral assertion of a caliphate, which is opposed, I might add, by every single other country in the region. So if Russia wants to focus uniquely on ISIL and be of assistance there, that's one thing, but they've also pledged to be part of a political process under Geneva that sees a transition and would find a political settlement. We welcome their help to get rid of ISIL and to have a legitimate political transition. But you will not end the crisis of Syria as long as Assad remains this magnet for people to come in and fight.
Well, Germany, epicenter of the receiving of the refugees. I'm wondering what you feel when you see what America has described before as huddled masses coming across Europe in waves. And for example, I mean, today on the Croatian border, 10,000 refugees in one day. Now, that's the number that America has said it will receive. That's not enough, is it?
No, it isn't, which is precisely why we are looking at what the other options are and why there is urgency. Urgency with respect to Syria. Well, I'm not going to go into all the options now. That's a discussion I'm having with people. But
can you see options? Because at the moment, Europe is in chaos.
Yes, I can see options, and I think it is absolutely essential that we move very rapidly because this is a human catastrophe. It is also a moral challenge to everybody as to how people are dealt with, but you cannot deal with this just by taking in people. You have to go to the root causes. You have to go to the place from which all of these people are coming, and particularly when you have a man who has committed war crimes, to everybody's knowledge, gassing your people, barrel bombing children, torturing people, for 10,000s of more photographs of the people who've been tortured and killed.
But in a sense, you have to get the rest of humanity on side, don't you? And to do so, don't you have to talk about the options?
Of course you have to talk about the options, but I think leadership requires us to make our decisions as governments as to precisely what it is we're prepared to do, and then we go out and talk to people and not just throw a lot of things out there that have not yet been decided on or that people haven't coalesced around. But I will say that all 60 countries have been deeply engaged one way or the other. And we've always said some countries will be engaged in flying air sorties and in being involved in the kinetic struggle against Daesh. Others will help with refugee challenges, with development issues. Others will help with foreign fighters. There are many different roles that are being played.
I mean, that sounds great, but the truth is that in this, we have seen a terrible failure of Europe. And I mention Europe because here, of course, Europe is a contentious issue. Would you be worried if Britain fell out of Europe, if they voted? I mean, the polls are really very close now. If they voted to leave?
Well, this is a decision that the folks here in Britain have to make a decision about. It's a decision, obviously, that...
but surely you would like them still.
We want a Europe that is strong and whole and free, and that is obviously a Europe of one voice with respect to something like the challenge of these migrants and the challenge of Syria, where you have a terrorist entity that is a threat to all of us. And in that, we want strength, and we want unity, and we want colleagues, partner countries prepared to come to the table and work with us. No one country can solve this problem alone.
In your country, indeed in Western democracies generally, there are these insurgent movements. You see it with Bernie Sanders, you see it with Mr. Trump, you see it with Marine Le Pen in France. And here, the Labour Party has just elected Jeremy Corbyn, who is opposed to Trident, opposed to NATO. Are you worried?
As a former presidential candidate and as a senator for more than 28 years, who has run for office many times, I'm very, incredibly stimulated to want to comment on a lot of these things. But my job today is the Secretary of State of the United States and to lead our foreign policy efforts on behalf of President Obama. So I'm not going to comment on presidential or parliamentary or party politics in one country or another. I will say this, though, because I think it's important. There is a general dissatisfaction on a global basis by citizens in many countries with the inability of governments to respond to felt needs of their people. And it is true, and people are angry, people are frustrated, and I understand that frustration. What I want to make sure is, what I worry about, is not confusing things so that we don't live up to our responsibilities on a global basis to stand up to terrorists, to stand up to legitimate threats to our nations across boundaries, to deal globally together with something like climate change. There are many things we have to work on together. And what I don't want to see is that anger in any country, anywhere, get in the way of sensible judgment about our shared responsibility to deal with these things. In World War II, we came together. That's when we developed the best part of the special relationship between England and the United States, between Great Britain and the United States. We don't want to lose our ability to partner and to stand up to very real challenges today. And I hope that none of this politics anywhere in the world is going to get in the way of us all living up to our global responsibilities.
Mr. Secretary, I'm very grateful to you for talking to us.
Happy
Thank
to
you
be
very
with
much.
Thank you. Thank you.